and begins his speech in front of that raucous crowd that's ready to go. I don't know, are they playing that kind of soft, mellow music to counterbalance the excitement there, Steve? You must have been to a couple of these.
Yeah, Charles, I would say this. What is interesting is the excitement and the energy he has generated around this country. Now, of course, the media is going to take some of these incidents and say they're legitimate. I'm not saying they're not legitimate, but what's really legitimate is the energy and the excitement he has caused across this nation amongst all age groups, all ethnicities. This is America at its best.
You say energy and excitement. I say division. He claims to be a unifier, and the country is more polarized than ever. And Donald Trump, when he goes out and uses inflammatory language in his rallies, and he talks about the Mexican rapists and all other things.
Those are all.
Look at his poll numbers among Hispanics. They're lower than Congress's poll numbers.
And
that's pretty bad.
I just think he's rolling in like a showman. I mean, I've got to roll my eyes at this. He's rolling in like a James Bond villain.
Why wouldn't it be James Bond himself, though? I mean, listen, I know you don't like him, Jillian, but you have to admit that he's doing some things that we've never seen before. Mm-hmm. He's energizing a whole lot of people. In fact, people have given up on voting. People have given up on America. He's touched some sort of a nerve there. Of course, that brings a certain amount of power and responsibility, and that's when we talk about the presidential part of it. Let me ask Jenny Beth about that. Even Trump has admitted that members of his family, from his wife to his daughter, says, we need you to be more presidential, and it feels like he's trying to do that. What's your assessment there?
Well, I want to go back just 1 second to the part where we were asking about who's responsible for what happened over the weekend. I've led a protest movement for the last 7 years. I was so angry that I took to the streets because I didn't know how else to express that anger with the government. I've led protests in front of the U.S. Capitol with 50,000 people. I know what it's like to have a huge crowd full of angry people who want to express themselves. And when you've got that kind of crowd and that kind of emotion and energy, the person who's responsible, the person they're looking to lead the crowd, whether it's Donald Trump or when I was in front of the U.S. Capitol emceeing things, you have to take responsibility and make sure that the people in your crowd know there's a proper way to respond to people who are protesting.
Right. Well,
and Donald Trump hasn't done that. And I think
we just had moments ago, though. Right before the plane landed, though, there was an announcement. There's a safe area for protesters. They're holding these events more and more at private venues. They're renting them out so that it's a private event, not on public property. And they've asked that the protesters don't harm anyone. Let me just add, I want to bring in Rod Wheeler. Rod, you're a police professional. You're a law enforcement professional. From your angle, how do you see all of this shaking out right now?
Well, I can tell you that since the events took place in Chicago over the weekend, the level of security at the Trump rallies has increased significantly. And I kind of can see that just from looking at some of the additional uniformed officers as well as the Secret Service. Now, Donald Trump, just so that the viewers know, he has his own security contingent as well, Charles. So there's a number of people there to protect this guy. And I think going forward, we're going to continue to see that level of security at all Trump rallies.
So, Rod, when you've been, when you've had events like this, obviously when there's a large crowd, there's to a certain extent that the person leading the crowd, control that they have over them. Do you think Donald Trump has exerted enough control, or do you think he's starting to catch up now with these sort of pre-announcements?
Well, I think it's a combination of both. I do think some of the responsibility lies on Donald Trump himself. But again, as you indicated earlier, Charles, the events that took place in Chicago were not Donald Trump protesters. These were not Donald Trump supporters. These were protesters, organized protesters. So, you can't really blame the guy because he wants to utilize his First Amendment right. And then you have these individuals that want to silence him. So I think Donald Trump is doing as much as he possibly can to try to keep his supporters under wraps.
I will tell you guys, last year we had these protesters out here, same sort of crowd, the MoveOn.orgs and the Black Lives Matter, and they are very organized. They had the walkie-talkies, they had the GPS, they had the great printed up signs. So I think they might have actually backfired. I don't know what their goal was, maybe to stir up a general election. And there's a poll out, the Monmouth poll, that shows that what happened in Chicago has helped Donald Trump more than it's hurt him.
But I want to say it's not just protesters that are feeling threatened, and I think that's a really important point that gets lost. I mean, we have a female reporter allegedly grabbed from the top, Trump's campaign manager. Today I was looking through, you've got a history of, reporters trying to take photos, trying to document these protests, so we actually have the facts, being roughed up by Trump crew. I mean, I think this is something that's pretty systematic. He's a guy that's threatened to use libel law to go after journalists.
Well, Charles,
it's a bigger threat than just protesters.
Here's a perfect illustration. My 38 years on a police department, when I was sent to large crowds to make sure that there would be no violence and there would be no roughing up. Well, guess what? There would be people roughed up. There would be near violence. And you know who got blamed for that? The police. The police got blamed. And the police were the ones that were there to keep the peace. We did everything we could. So you can't place blame on the leaders all the time, and you can't place blame on the police. Accountability and responsibility are for those who commit the actions.
But
There's no excuse for it.
I would love to hear, though, your explanation for why we're only seeing this kind of violence at Trump events.
Well, because Trump is ahead. A lot of these protesters have been paid to disrupt his rallies.
All right, the doors are opening.
That's
too.
why you're seeing
I think also someone would say, you have 20,000 people at a Trump event and maybe a couple hundred at a Rubio event. No disrespect, Evan. All right, Chris Christie and Donald Trump waving to the crowd. Christie going ahead. Christie's like he's like blocking and tackling, right? I got you. Let me go ahead and make sure everything's okay. This should be a good one, guys. Hey, Jenny Beth, let me ask you, Chris Christie, today a state trooper, there was a funeral for a state trooper in New Jersey. I live in Jersey. I'm really offended he didn't show up there, but I guess everyone really wants these jobs in a potential Trump administration. What's your take on that?
I suppose he does. I believe Chris Christie hasn't been doing his job as governor, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with people as they're looking at who do they want to lead this country. Do they show up and do the job they currently have? And I think that's a problem for the people of New Jersey. And you wonder about what is it that he's hoping to get in a potential Trump administration.
All right,
you can't
guys.
help but wonder that.
Chris Christie making the introduction.
My name is Chris Christie, and I'm happy to tell you that tomorrow you're going to make Ohio Trump country. America needs a strong leader to restore our hope and our strength, and there's only one man to do it, and that's Donald Trump. America needs someone in the White House who knows how to create jobs because he's done it, and that man's Donald Trump. America needs a leader who will restore our military and have the backs of the men and women in the Army, and that's Donald Trump. America needs a leader who the rest of the world is going to respect because he's going to make America great again. That's Donald Trump. We do not need what you've had to put up with here in Ohio. We don't need higher spending from government. We don't need bigger sales taxes. We don't need that brought to Washington. We need someone who's going to make government smaller and smarter and working for you, not the other way around, and that's Donald Trump. Tomorrow we need each and every one of you. Your families, your friends, the people you work with, your neighbors, to get out to the polls and make sure you vote for the person who will make America great again, Donald J. Trump. It is so great to see such a great crowd here today. We want you to go home after this, get some sleep, get up tomorrow morning, get to the polls, and make America great again with Donald Trump. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my privilege to introduce to you the next president of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Chris. So great.